the Queen of England? Elizabeth. Now, she's actually known as Queen Elizabeth II because about 400 years ago, there was another Queen Elizabeth. She's known as Queen Elizabeth I or Queen Elizabeth the Great. And that time was known as the Elizabethan era. During that time, there was a man, a playwright called William Shakespeare. And he wrote a number of amazing plays. And at this school, we've done many of them. And those of you in grade 6 and 7 will remember a few years ago being part of two tragedies. And those tragedies were Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare also wrote comedies, and he also wrote historical plays. Two of his historical plays that he wrote was Henry V and Richard II. Now, we've also done some comedies here at the Vine School, and a couple of them one of them was Midsummer Night's Dream, and the one we are doing this year is also a romantic comedy. Now, this romantic comedy actually has two names, and it's called What You Will, but what we are going to actually be calling it mostly is Twelfth Night. In this play, we're going to meet many different characters. Some have very strange names, like Sir Toby Belch and Sir Andrew Aguteek. It is set in a fictitious country called Illyria, but it's full of romance and mix-ups and comedy and all sorts of wonderful things. This play centers on twins called Viola and Sebastian, and they are aboard a ship bound for Messalene. The festive company, dressed for masquerade and singing songs, delight in these two young twins. But a storm has forced their vessel from its course, and they strike upon submerged rocks. But before we hear about the shipwreck, you must know that inland, from its wild coast, Illyria was green and golden land, of thatched cottages, neat as well-combed children, of gracious mansions, and the noble palace of the Duke. Orsino was his name. And before the shipwreck, he was fathoms deep in love for Olivia, a fair countess who dwelt nearby. If music be the food of love, he sighed, gazing through the windows towards the lady's house. Play on, give excess of it. And his lute player bent low over his beribboned instrument and filled the air with song. But alas, what pleasure was there in a feast for only one? The lady would have nothing to do with him. That is, until the shipwreck. She was in mourning for a brother deceased and had shut herself away in the mansion and vowed to see no sailors, nobody, for 7 long years. But let's go back to the shipwreck. Brother and sister, twins, alone in the world, orphaned since their father's death, were plunged into the raging waters, deep currents, and their sinking ship above them divided what no man had ever separated. The poor survivors, Viola, the beautiful sister, and faithful sailor among them, reached an alien shore. Calm down quietly. Cast upon the beach at Illyria, Viola realizes that her brother Sebastian is lost to her.
What country, friend, is this?
This is Illyria, lady.
And what should I do in Illyria? My brother, he is in Elysium. Perchance he is not drowned. What think you, sailor?
It is perchance that you yourself were saved.
Oh, my poor brother!
Comfort you with chance. Assure yourself, after our ship did split, when you and those poor numbered with you were saved, when you hung upon our driving boat, I saw your brother bind himself to a strong mast that lived upon the sea.
For saying so, there's gold. Mine own escape unfoldeth to my hope. Knowest thou this country?
Aye, madam, well.
Who governs here?
A noble duke, Orsino.
Orsino! I've heard my father name him. He was a bachelor then.
And so is now. He seeks the love of fair Olivia,
What's she?
a virtuous maid in the protection of a brother. Who shortly died, for whose dear love they say, she hath forsworn the company and the face of men.
Oh, that I served that lady.
That were hard to compass, because she will admit no kind of suit, no, not the duke's.
There's a fair behaviour in this age. I prithee, be my aid, for such disguise as aptly shall become the form of my intent. I'll serve this duke. Thou shalt present me as a boy to him. It may be worth thy pains, for I can sing and speak to him in many sorts of music that will allow me very worth his service.
Be you his boy, and your mute I'll be. When my tongue blares, then let mine eyes not see.
I thank thee, lead me on.
Viola is off to pretend to be a boy and get work with Duke Orsino. Want to know what happens next? Yes! Should I tell you? Yes! All right, I'm going to tell you one thing. Viola, who's dressed as a boy, she calls herself Cesario. But she falls in love with Orsino. What a mix-up! Do you think that Viola's brother Sebastian is alive or dead?
Alive.
Do you want to know?
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you. Because your teachers are going to start reading this book to you. I read to you the first paragraph of the book, of the story. And you are going to learn what happens to them and find out all the mix-ups and all the things that happen in the story. But before we finish, I hope that we haven't lost our Viola and Sailor. Please can our Viola and Sailor come back, if they are still there. Boys and girls, can we give them a round of applause?